Hi guys, I am so excited to show you today how I create my signature wispy, I like to call it the furry caterpillar brow. I love creating textures and just making the brows look as full as possible. So I have this beautiful model here today and her brows are already naturally really full. And the importance of brows is you don't always necessarily have to go dramatic. It's all about giving the face a shape, and you can lengthen it, make it taller, make it shorter, make it longer, and bring it closer to the center. And all of these tips will help completely change the shape of your face. And today I'm going to show you how I like to create the perfect brow. So I'm going to be taking this double-sided pencil brush and I'm going to grab the spoolie and start brushing her eyebrow hairs upwards. And what this ensures is that there's no product in there before we start shaping the brow. So now I'm going to be using the other side of the brow pencil, and what I love about this retractable pencil is that it is so flat that it's really easy to do little feathery strokes and create a supernatural brow. We're going to be starting at the bottom, and light feathery strokes. I'm just going to go back and forth very lightly just to define the shape of her brow. I'm putting very little pressure. It's honestly all about the pressure. You can use a pencil that's really dark, almost borderline black, but by putting such light pressure on your hand and feathering the color in, it will look like 3 shades lighter than the actual pencil. So already we're seeing a super defined line here by just adding a little bit of color. Now we're going to go towards the tail of the brow and lightly dragging it. I'm not putting too much pressure here as well because her brows start to thin out on the ends and I don't want it to get too dark. I want there to be a really soft gradient fade. And if you end up putting too much color, you can take the spoolie and brush it out. It will naturally fade the color for you. Now we're going to start on the tail and the top, connecting the bottom. You basically want to look for the parts that are not as full and make it look like those are her actual hairs. So the shade I chose is ash brown. Her eyebrows are almost borderline black, but I didn't want to choose a black. I wanted to basically create a shadow as to where I was filling it rather than making the whole thing just looks super dark and just super bold. You always want to go a little bit lighter than your eyebrow color when filling it in. Now we're going to go ahead and move towards the top, and for the top I'm going to start brushing it upwards again, and I'm going to lightly flick little faux hairs to create a more bushy effect. So I'm not defining the top like I did on the bottom, I'm just adding little strokes. Now we're going to go to the beginning of the brow. Same thing, I'm going to go upwards, and just from where her tear duct is up, I'm going to focus on the beginning of her brow and just lightly feather it upwards. And I always suggest kind of stepping back from your client when you're taking a look at their brows, because the closer you are, you don't really see all of the little gaps in between. Okay, so I'm going to add a little bit more right here. And now we're going to move on to my favorite part. We're going to be applying the brow gel. So this brow gel has color in it already. This is great for somebody like her. If she wanted to, she can easily take this brow gel, run it through her brows, and call it a day on days where she doesn't have time to actually sit there and define it with a pencil. But what this mainly does is it adds texture to the brow, so it really accentuates the hairs, and it also keeps them in place. So it plays as a color and also pretty much like a hairspray on a spoolie. And I'm going to just brush everything upwards to really give that feathery brow. When you're doing this, you want to make sure you don't go too close to your skin, because you could possibly stamp the brow gel onto your skin. If that happens, it's super easy. Just take a clean spoolie like this one right here, and once it's dry, you can lightly flick and it'll just flake it right off. But to avoid that, you just want to kind of, if you're working on a client, you can go to the side and see how close you're going to their actual skin right above their brow. That way you don't stamp it. Now we're going to be cleaning up the brow with some concealer. I'll be taking the concealer, putting it on the back of my hand just to warm it up a little bit. And I'm grabbing a flat brush. This also helps you not pick up too much product. You don't want too much product, especially above the brow, because then it'll give you more of that halo effect if the concealer is too intense. So going back and forth motions, I'm going to be starting at the tail of her brow and softly cleaning it up. And after I do this, I immediately start buffing downwards to make sure we don't have any lines and no signs of concealing. I like to use a concealer that's very close to the skin tone of the client or myself, because if you use something that's too light, it's gonna leave like that white cast, even if you blend it out. So on days where you're not wearing makeup and use a really light concealer, you're gonna be able to tell that you cleaned it up with something, and you just want everything to look effortless. As for the top, I'm not gonna drag the line across. I'm just gonna clean up the tail area because I don't wanna mess with these parts that we brushed upwards. I wanna leave them going straight up and keep the hairs in place. Just blend as you go instead of cleaning up the entire brow and then blending the concealer, because the concealer will dry and it'll be harder for you to clean up afterwards. It's all about not making it look like you used any concealer. All right, guys, so that concludes my bushy, wispy brow tutorial. I pretty much just accentuated what she had and just worked with what she had. We created a different shape by applying some brow pencil and cleaning it up with concealer, and I hope you guys enjoyed it. Thank you for watching.